kind of gave it a bad name to be a boy band, which we didn't even know what that was when we came over. We were like, well, we're a vocal group, it's a boy band.
NSYNC celebrities, they're really good celebrities.
I can't wait for the press gets all these tapes.
How old were you when you got into NSYNC?
For right now.
When I started NSYNC?
Yeah.
When I started NSYNC, I didn't get into it, I started.
When we first got on the bus, it was kind of hard to adjust to that kind of life, but
we hadn't done anything major to connect the face to the music.
We just did a TV show, and now we are doing the radio show. Yay!
When Lance, had declared, I'm going to space, so we can't tour for next year.
I mean, they're both challenging and both fun.
And he always did the whole thing like, oh yeah, like if I massage your bicep like this, it'll look bigger.
We're puppets. If you're a doll, your career is over.
I think we can't live our lives in fear.
That's kind of like one of those Area 51 things where no one's really ever going to know the truth.
You went to space camp.
Had been a good 2,000 plus people there.
And I don't think you can get much better than that, being able to do something that you love for a living.
I mean, when I talk about Justin, it's the weirdest thing on the planet, because I always wonder what Mozart's older brother feels like.
Over there. Hello. And then it says, P.S. Can you say hi to my best friends Danielle and Heidi in Section F? Thanks.
Please do not send any hate or honestly comments of any kind to anyone mentioned in this video on behalf of me or yourself. Thank you very much. The purpose of this video is to give my commentary and opinion on matters of public concern. Thank you. Welcome to BJ Investigates, a show I just created and might never do again. Actually, I'm probably going to do it again, let's be honest, but here you are. In the last few episodes, we had started talking about the web series, and it deals with the P. Diddy video. We had a Justin Bieber conservatorship mention, Backstreet Boys, I don't know, probably some other stuff. But when I was researching, I started to realize that a lot of these stories, they end up tracing back to the same people, same players, same patterns of abuse, same all of that. So today's episode, probably you couldn't get through a boy band series in any way, shape, or form without at least dedicating in one entire video to NSYNC. I do want to let y'all know, this is going to be a very long video. It's possibly going to be the longest video on this channel. And that is because the most work has probably gone into it as far as pure hours of research and things like that. You're going to see in this video, there's a bunch of different versions of this story that's going to happen, right? Basically when I start out trying to tell y'all a video, it's I do a little short part in the beginning. I'm like, oh, the way that the band started or whatever, how they rose to fame. Sometimes it's one sentence, two sentences. It literally took me several days to even try to get my arms around what happened with this band's origin. There's a bunch of different details and rabbit holes and things, and promise you I left a lot of them out. Probably there's going to end up being a series within a series, but don't get overwhelmed. This is a long video, get a snack, and let's get into it. NSYNC is an American boy band founded in 1995 by disgraced media mogul Louis J. Pearlman.
He started developing bands, the first one being Backstreet Boys. He needed another band to get the younger sisters of the girls that he'd already hooked with Backstreet Boys.
Now, as we sit here today, Lou Pearlman has rightfully earned some pretty unsavory nicknames, including the boy band Con, a pedophile, a molester, a disgraced convicted criminal, pretty much everything but a child of God. But that wasn't always the case.
Lou is a super nice guy. Super nice guy.
At the height of his success, Lou was called the King Midas of boy bands, the Hitman, and the Berry Gordy of our generation.
You know what I mean? He was the Berry Gordy of my generation, and here I am talking to the creator. And
he started a record label in the early 1990s for the sole purpose of creating a boy band that could rival the success of New Kids on the Block.
Transcontinental Records is not just a leader in the music industry. It's a key player in the business world.
You use pretty much for the record company the business model that Motown used years ago, or even going back further, the model that Hollywood studios used, where you develop your own acts and you nurture them and bring them along and market them and do the whole number, don't you?
That's right. We have our own little boot camp down here.
From Louis J. Pearlman, the man who brought you the Backstreet Boys, NSYNC, and from the hit series Making the Band, O-Town, comes his first feature film.
He auditioned a few boys, worked them to the bone for hours on end, and even recruited some of the New Kids on the Block's actual tour managers to jumpstart his boy band experiment. And just to be clear, that was the Backstreet Boys. Again, we already did the whole video on that.
It's also called the sudden death syndrome.
But once Lou had a proof of concept with the Backstreet Boys, he established a full-scale, in-house assembly line, farm-to-stage boy band manufacturing operation. He would scout potential talent from anywhere he could get access, including local amusement parks like Disney World, Universal Studios, the Mickey Mouse Club, all these places. And he didn't stop at boy bands either. More on that maybe later. I don't want to get too ahead of myself. He did start a girl band with Justin Timberlake's mother called NSYNC, but again, I don't want to get too off track here. So fast forward a couple years, and two of Lou's most successful boy bands would sue him for shady business practices and financial mismanagement. And then the financial investors in Lou's other business ventures would also begin to make similar complaints shortly thereafter. This led to an FBI investigation a few years later, during which Lou decided to flee the country, causing the FBI to launch a full-scale international manhunt for him. And by 2008, he was convicted of a host of financial crimes, including fraud, conspiracy, and other things, and he was sentenced to 25 years in prison. Now, Lou maintained that he was innocent, claiming he was being used as the fall guy for other bad actors. But he ended up randomly dying like 8 years later in prison or something. There's a whole video about this on YouTube called The Boy Band Con that I recommend you watch, but that's the TLDR. Anyway, back in 1995, none of these criminal activities had even happened yet, and Lou was riding high on the success of his first project, the Backstreet Boys. And his next little project would follow Backstreet Boys' success so closely, they could read the bumper sticker on the Backstreet tailgate. NSYNC is indisputably one of the most successful boy bands of all time. And this is the part of the video where I would normally give a brief overview of the group's origin story, but in this twisted, tangled, upside-down industry run by demonic clowns, nothing turns out as straightforward as you might want it to be. So before I ever even got off to the races on my research of the band, their discography, their successes, accomplishments, or anything else, I spent several days just trying to get a sense of the actual origin story of NSYNC. This might remind you of another recent video in a series that we did on Usher. Like, I had to devote half the damn video to showing all the different versions of the story, which some of y'all still didn't get, but that's okay, you'll get there. In one version of that Usher story, Usher was in a little boy band in Tennessee, and then allegedly his mom pulled him out of the group. They moved to Atlanta, he went and did talent shows, then he met Bobby Brown's bodyguard at one of the talent competitions. The bodyguard introduces him to L.A. Reid's brother, who ultimately introduced him to L.A. Reid, who owned the record label that ultimately signed Usher. Okay, that's one version. But in another version of the story, Usher's momager worked in the same building as the record label, and basically allegedly screwed over Usher's little bandmates to boost Usher to the top as a solo artist. Then when Usher started losing his voice because of puberty, he was going to lose his deal and everything, and it was casually revealed that Usher's momager was apparently personal friends with Elton John.
Actually, his mother had called her friend Elton John, and Elton was in a studio here in Atlanta.
It was a whole confusing mess, but the main point here is there were wildly different versions of the story, and they could definitely not all be true at the same time in the same dimension. And this NSYNC origin story situation is very reminiscent of that. Like, sure, maybe some details get forgotten over the years, and maybe some of them aren't really that important in the grand scheme of things, but there were some major discrepancies in this NSYNC origin story from people who were supposed to literally have first-hand knowledge of the situation. The NSYNC origin story is honestly so all over the place and unclear, even game shows ask the origin story as a guide is collect and gather facts and evidence from the public record and bring that info to y'all, along with my commentary and opinion, so you can make up your own mind. I wasn't there for any of this, okay? I was worried about multiplications tables and whether the energy man was going to show up and turn our water off again or something. Okay, so I wasn't there, I do not know. But what I'm going to do here is reminiscent of what I did in that Usher video. I'm just going to present the info that I came across in my research from the public record and leave it here for y'all to make up your own mind on what you think might really be going on. Now, there are many possible entrances to this rabbit hole, so let's just start with the officially recognized, quote, first member of NSYNC, Chris Kirkpatrick.
You're the oldest? Yeah, you are. I'm the oldest. The one with the freaky hair.
You?
I'm actually, how old are you now?
27.
27. Isn't it strange to be in a band and be together all of the time when there's such a difference in age?
Christopher Allen Kirkpatrick was born on October 17th, 1971 in Pennsylvania to a teen mom and a young father.
I was very, very young when I had him, and I wasn't sure what to expect. He was a very cute baby. He had dark brown eyes, but hairy. Really hairy.
When Chris was about 6 months old, his parents separated, and his dad would basically abandon Chris and the mom eventually moving to Florida. The mom went on to have 2 more children, both daughters, leaving Chris as not only the oldest of 3 children, but also the only man of the house. And he took this role very seriously.
He did get a job as soon as he was old enough to get his working papers. He bagged groceries. He would come home and hand me his check, and I'd say, keep some of this for yourself. And he'd go, that's okay, Mom, I don't need anything. He never asked for anything. He really didn't. He just wanted to be the man of the house. He wanted to take care of things.
From the documentaries I've watched and the research I've done, Chris's entire childhood seems to have been defined by two factors. One, constant financial insecurity. And two, a deep conviction that he had to do something about it. Chris started performing for audiences at a young age.
When I was born, I drove my mom crazy. I was in a play one time and I had a lot of makeup on. I was dressed up as an old man. So I decided to play a trick on my mom, and I went home and knocked on the door and told her I was the landlord. And I come to evict her out of the apartment because she didn't pay the rent. She said, "That's very funny, Chris. Now get in the house."
And at just 6 years old, he played the role of Oliver in a play where all the other actors were actually high schoolers.
It really surprised me because Chris read them with a Cockney accent.
Please, sir, I want smoke.
I knew this was the one for Oliver.
In high school, Chris was in the show choir and performed in various plays and ensembles, but he was still longing for a relationship with his biological father, who had abandoned him years earlier. So Chris graduated high school and shipped off to Florida, where his father was living at the time, to attend college. On weekdays, Chris attended classes at Valencia in Orlando, and on the weekends, he performed with the Hollywood High Tones, a doo-wop group that did shows in front of Universal Studios in Orlando.
He would stand there and sing, and little girls would just be like,
I'd like to be a dream, if I could take you up to paradise up above, then you would tell me I'm the only one that you love. Life would be a dream, sweetheart.
And this is where Lou Pearlman enters the chat. At that time, Lou had already seen success with his first boy band project, the Backstreet Boys, but the Backstreet Boys, like any boy band, had a built-in expiration date. It was commonly understood throughout the music industry at that time that teen groups, including boy bands, only had a commercial shelf life of about 2 to 3 years. So by 1995, that was 2 years after the Backstreet Boys had started, and Lou was already on the lookout for his next meal ticket.
He started developing bands, the first one being Backstreet Boys. He needed another band to get the younger sisters of the girls that he'd already hooked with the Backstreet Boys.
He would show up at the Universal Studios park and listen to the bands with his entourage. I don't know, here's a clip right here.
Lou Pearlman would show up at the park and would just kind of sit back and kind of listen and cross his arms, and Lou always had an entourage.
As you're going to see, there's going to be many versions of this story, so here's just one. According to one of Chris's childhood friends, it was after one of Chris's performances with the High Tones that Lou approached Chris with an offer he couldn't refuse.
Chris came to me and he's like, I just talked to this guy, Lou Pearlman, and he wants to put together another group. Super nice guy. So he took us in his Rolls Royce and we pull up the Planet Hollywood and we get the VIP treatment. Chris's face just light up and there's this huge smile and, determination to get this together. It's like, so I gotta find 4 more guys.
Lou told Chris, you put a band together and I will finance the band.
Mr. Pearlman said, why don't you put a band together and I will finance the band.
He offered Chris a really good opportunity to do what he wanted to do.
Lou offered Chris a real good opportunity to do what he wanted to do.
And this is where we find our first discrepancy. Because see, that information came from the VH1 Driven documentary for NSYNC. But in this A&E biography, NSYNC's manager, Johnny Wright, sits right there in that chair and says something completely different about the origin story.
NSYNC recorded a video demo to showcase their talents and hopefully attract a manager. They passed it around to everyone they knew. Word spread quickly, eventually reaching Lou Pearlman's partner, Johnny Wright, who was touring with the Backstreet Boys in Europe. Wright liked what he saw and tried to persuade Pearlman to take them on.
He claims he saw NSYNC's demo and ran to Lou Pearlman asking whether he would want to take a shot on them or at them or something. I don't know, here's the clip.
So I called him one night and I said, look, if you can find this band and you can get them, I think I can get a record deal for them.
Pearlman saw NSYNC's demo and was thoroughly convinced. He immediately signed them and set about booking concerts.
But there's literally footage of Justin Timberlake and Lou Pearlman at Universal Studios watching Joey Fatone be a Wolfman at the Beetlejuice show, so it is clear as day that Lou did start this group. I don't know why Johnny Wright was sitting there lying through his teeth, but even just these 2 versions of the story don't add up. But there's also written articles that back up the whole Lou said he would finance the band story. According to this article right here, he told Chris Kirkpatrick that he would finance the band if he could get a group together, meaning Lou would finance the band if Chris could get a group together. So that's already two different versions of the story of how NSYNC started. Just to recap, the first version is Lou Pearlman wanted to start another band because Backstreet Boys was successful. He went and personally, on his own time, scouted Chris, approached Chris, and said, look, put together the rest of the band. I'm gonna give you the money. I'm gonna finance it. Second version is Johnny Wright's version in this biography for A&E, where he says he's the one who scouted NSYNC and brought them to Lou Pearlman. Okay, two different versions, but we're not done yet. For whatever reason, Chris Kirkpatrick is now on record on a Big Brother episode in 2022 telling a totally different third version of the story. In this clip, he claims to have, quote, started NSYNC, and he is very belligerent about it.
How old were you when you got into NSYNC?
For right now.
When I started NSYNC?
Yeah.
When I started NSYNC. I didn't get into it. I started.
He was bragging about a Nissan Sentra and calling 19 agents or something. Here's the clip, transformed because reality TV hates fair use.
Specifically, I called 19 talent agents, and only one guy got back to me, and I'm like, great. So I go to this guy's place, Studio Plaza in Orlando, and I get this manila envelope, and I had a cassette tape, and I had my little Nissan Sentra, and I pop in the cassette tape, and I'm like, what the hell am I listening to right now? And I look at the picture, I'm like, Justin Timberlake. Long story even longer, I found Justin. Justin said, I got this kid that was on the Mickey Mouse Club with me, JC.
But in this Big Brother clip, Chris doesn't really actually go into too much detail, and it certainly can't be reconciled with the other two versions of the story we heard. But he is clear that some, quote, talent agent in Orlando was trying to sell him on a young Justin Timberlake in this version of the story. And we'll get fully into Justin in a minute, but right now I'm literally just trying to get through the origin story. Like, how did this band start? And why is it so difficult to just get one straightforward answer that lines up with other people's stories? In the Big Brother clip, Chris mentions the talent agent, giving him Justin Timberlake's demo package, including a cassette and like a poster or picture or something. And to be honest, Todrick Hall, love him or leave him, but he's kind of fact-checking Chris right there in real time. Like, wait, hold on, buddy. What's really going on?
Wait, so you met Justin Timberlake, and then he brought in JC, who is insane, has an awesome voice. I met him at the Beverly Center.
But Chris doesn't really give up any more info. I don't know why, if he got spooked, if he realized he didn't really know the answer or what. He just completely avoids answering Todrick's clarification question and gives no further details on the origin story, and he meanders off into this weird fanboy diatribe about Justin.
Met him at the Beverly Center.
Justin is, I mean, when I talk about Justin, it's the weirdest thing on the planet, because it's like, I always feel like, I always wonder what Mozart's like older brother feels like.
And y'all, correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm starting to get the impression Justin Timberlake and his mother, Janet Lynn Bomar Harless, could have had a lot more to do with the inception of NSYNC than previously known. Now hear me out. In this Big Brother clip, Chris insists that he started NSYNC by calling all these different talent agents, which is already an irreconcilably different origin story than the official VH1 driven version where Lou Pearlman scouted him after watching him do a Hollywood High Tones performance with this huge entourage. But also in this Big Brother clip, Chris admits there was only one single solitary talent agent out of the 19 that he contacted who bothered to return his call.
Specifically, I called 19 talent agents, and only one guy got back to me, and I'm like, great.
And this agent apparently invited him to his place in Studio Plaza in Orlando.
Did all this work, one guy. So I go to this guy's place, Studio Plaza.
Now, who is this one guy? That's my question. Is it Johnny Wright? Is it Lou Pearlman? Is it somebody else? I mean, whether it was Johnny or Lou is kind of immaterial because Johnny and Lou had already been working together at Transcontinental Records for years by that time. But yeah, so 1 out of 19 talent agents returns his call. Then, according to Chris on the Big Brother clip, when he does go to meet this only shot at fame talent agent, the talent agent already had a whole demo package of Justin Timberlake in a manila folder ready to go for Chris's review.
Did all this work, one guy. So I go to this guy's place, Studio Plaza in Orlando, and I get this manila envelope, and I had a cassette tape, and I had my little Nissan Sentra, and I pop in the cassette tape, and I'm like, what the hell am I listening to right now? And I look at the picture, I'm like, Justin Timberlake.
Now, Chris said he listened to Justin's demo CD, and he seems to imply he didn't even really like it, with the quote, what the hell am I even listening to right now commentary that he gave.
What the hell am I listening to right now?
So I don't know, again, correct me if I'm wrong, but with all these different stories out there that can literally not all be true at the same time, I'm just trying to find the lowest common denominator between them all. Now, these different versions of the NSYNC origin story do have me wondering, could it be, and this is just a question, okay, but could it be that maybe Justin Timberlake was actually the original first member of this group? And I know you might be thinking, please, BJ, for the love of God, this is such a reach. Just let me finish telling you some of the other evidence I found that makes me wonder this and then decide. Exhibit A, I guess right here, is this 2003 newspaper feature from the Clarion Ledger, where Lance Bass's vocal coach, Bob Westbrook, talks about helping Lance get the audition for NSYNC. In this article, black and white, clear as day, the voice coach, Bob, states unequivocally that Justin Timberlake was, quote, helping to start the band. And this voice coach isn't some bumpkin off the streets. He was actually Justin Timberlake's former voice coach, too.
Love, it's on the square. I can't.
I've coached Justin Timberlake, as we're now coaching his brother Jonathan Timberlake, who's following in his footsteps. Britney Spears when she was 12, 13. And when Taylor first came in and started taking, the first thing I told Taylor, she looked a lot like Britney when Britney was that age.
An hour's drive out of the town, here in a motel on the side of Interstate 55, the American dream is in action once again. This is 12-year-old Taylor Horn.
Kind of love to last.
Everyone compares me and Brittany, and I think it's because we're both from the same town, and we're both two girls who sing, and we both have the same voice coach, so that has a lot to do with it. But I'm really nothing like her, because she does, even though I'm starting to do pop, it's kind of a different kind of pop.
Certainly she's not as big as Britney.
Not yet.
If you're looking for comparison, but
She could be as big as Britney?
I think she will be. Any of her handlers will tell you the same thing, that she has the same drive and the same ambition, and where other kids are out playing, she's inside practicing singing.
They're very similar. They're both very driven. They spend a lot of time working in the mirror. They make me work hard because of their desire to sing, and they have the same work ethic, and that's what you need. All right, I'm going to help your muscle. I'll do it with you. Ready, breathe.
I don't have too many friends down here. Most of my friends are into business. I was 9 when I started, so I was still in school. I'm homeschooled now. I'd probably be in a restaurant, do you want fries with that kind of person? Because I have no else where to go, I don't think, except for my singing, my acting. That's my life.
I'd spank you, but it'd go on camera.
So according to this voice coach, this vocal coach, who had coached both Justin Timberlake and Lance Bass, who would go on to be members of NSYNC, he was the connection that scored Lance Bass his NSYNC audition in the first place. According to that guy, Justin Timberlake himself helped to start NSYNC. And for further evidentiary support of my little speculation theory, we get another different version of the story. In the 2019 YouTube documentary, The Boy Band Con, Lance Bass himself supports my theory, yet again. In the part of the interview where Lance is talking about how he joined the band, he states that his mother got a call from Lou Pearlman, along with Justin's mom and Justin himself, telling Lance's mom that they wanted Lance to audition as the 5th and final member of NSYNC.
It's like, this guy Lou Pearlman called with Justin Timberlake and his mother and wants to start a group in Orlando. And I knew of Justin at that point because he was on the Mickey Mouse Club. I was very excited. I'm like, well, we have to see what this is.
In this Boy Band Con interview, Lance states clearly and unequivocally that Lou Pearlman called Lance's mom on a call with Justin Timberlake and Justin's mother.
But I asked her about it. She's like, this guy Lou Pearlman called with Justin Timberlake and his mother.
And that Lou, quote, wanted to start a group in Orlando.
And wants to start a group in Orlando.
Which again is a very different story than the one Johnny Wright told about him being the one to scout and discover a whole ass band called NSYNC and bringing them to Lou Pearlman's attention after they had already put together a demo tape. Anyway, for the cherry on top, to support my little tinfoil hat theory, in that very same 2019 Boy Band Con documentary, Chris Kirkpatrick says that it wasn't until they needed that 5th and final member that they even started really auditioning.
Joey was trying to sing low, and he wasn't really a true low voice. That was the first time that we actually kind of started auditioning.
So I could be wrong, but isn't this kind of like implying that the first 4 members, including Justin Timberlake, didn't truly audition. So this is like 3, 4, I don't know how many versions of the NSYNC origin story already, maybe 5. Honestly, I can't even keep up because it's literally so all over the place.
A short time after 14-year-old Justin Timberlake hung up his mouse ears, he got a phone call that would propel him back into the spotlight. Chris Kirkpatrick had been tapped by Lou Pearlman, the successful founder of the Backstreet Boys, to put together another boy band. An agent sent Chris a tape.
Started listening, and I was like, wow, this kid can sing. And I looked at the headshot, and I was like, Justin Timberlake. I was like, Justin Timberlake, why does that sound familiar? And it's like he was on the Mickey Mouse Club and all these things. And I was like, this guy would want to be in my band? Like,
was there any kind of, well, he's really young, was there any thought about that?
There was.
I've been so lonely, baby.
But when I heard him sing, I mean, you know, it was just unbelievable. Like, his voice was just, especially at that age, it was so mature, and he had so much control over it. You know, this kid's so unbelievable. Like, I'm going to at least try. I'm going to make a phone call, awkward phone call, and see if I can get this to work.
It did work. The group, which would include ex-Mouseketeer JC Chasez, Joey Fatone, and Lance Bass, called themselves NSYNC.
And again, you can decide which one of the versions of the story you want to believe, but you do have to choose one or two because they cannot all literally be true at the same time.
Say in, you say sing, in. When I say in, you say sing, in.
Band history.
History. Stop asking me this. It actually started with Chris. Chris was the one who made the initial call. Chris calls me and says, I want to do this, I want to get the group together, and I immediately called JC. You know, when Chris called him, he called me like right away and said, yo, dude, this guy wants to get a group together. We've been singing, why aren't we together? And Justin knew JC because them two on the Mickey Mouse Club. You know, JC knew Chris from Universal. I knew Chris from some auditions. Got to Orlando, met Chris, hit it off right away. Felt, you know, was with him a week and I felt like I know him my whole life. So 3 of them got together and actually they went out to a club and they bumped into me. He looked at me and he goes, what are you two doing here together? And I was like, well, you know, we're starting a group, you know? And he's just like, what? So it was kind of weird seeing JC and Chris together because I'd never seen them together before.
Anyway, let's move on to the next bandmate, JC Chasez.
You've never been to an audition in your life?
Never in my life.
Oh my God, so this is exciting, right?
Yes, very.
So you should be excited, not nervous.
Kind of scared because I want this so badly.
Really? You want to move to Florida?
Not just that, I want to do this.
JC's rise to fame began when he auditioned with a group of girl dancers for a national competition called Star Power.
And in the dancers world, girls are a dime a dozen and a guy is just a shining glory. They got out there, heard the applause, saw the lights, and won first place.
Right after his group won the competition, JC's mom signed him up for an old faithful Mickey Mouse Club audition.
My name is Joshua Chasez and I'm from Bowie, Maryland.
The casting director talked about casting JC for the Mickey Mouse Club, and he was really very talented.
I noticed, JC in the back of the room. He's got a big smile on his face, and he's very winning. I literally went, you, come here, sing. He's like, I don't know if I could do it in front of everyone, so.
JC ended up being cast on the same season at the same time as Justin Timberlake, and this is a very important time frame for the Mickey Mouse Club. Y'all know it started like in the 50s or something it was so weird. It was so weird in the 50s. And then it went away, came back in like the 70s or something, went away again. And then it came back in like 1989, and it was all revamped. They took off the little mouse ears. They were wearing varsity jackets or whatever. But it was basically like sort of a mutated version or ancestor to All That, or what were the other ones that they had, like the Amanda Show. It was like a sort of variety show with a bunch of kids on it. 1993, 1994 was when Justin Timberlake and then Britney Spears, right, for that last season, all would be on the Mickey Mouse Club together, JC. And I don't know, it's just such a coincidence that so many people from this Mickey Mouse Club class that we can recognize by name still. We have Christina Aguilera, Britney Spears, JC Chasez, Justin Timberlake, Ryan Reynolds, one of them boys married to one of them girls, Gosling, whoever, and a couple other people. It's like big, names, except that one, obviously. It's hard, they kind of look all alike. I didn't see Barbie movie. Anyway, so interesting thing about that Mickey Mouse season, but one interesting thing about it is the very last season ever of the Mickey Mouse Club, until I think they tried to revive it again in 2017 or something. The very last season ever recorded was the season with Britney, Justin, Ryan, whoever, and all them, right? Christina Aguilera, all them, JC. Now, previously, on the Mickey Mouse Club, the airing of the episodes would be like 4 or 5 times a week, afternoons after kids got home from school. But this last season in the 90s, the one that Justin and all them were on, for some reason, all of a sudden, they wanted to only play like 1 episode a week. And then they would just rerun that episode throughout the week. It was actually recorded in October 1994. But the last episode did not air to the public until 1996. So it was 2 years that Brittany, Justin, Christina, all these kids are on TV for 2 years on the Mickey Mouse Club instead of previously where it was like 1 season, like a whole bunch of episodes, you know. I don't know. I just think that's important because to me it kind of seems intentional. Or maybe if it wasn't intentional, it was like a new experiment. And with the 1994 All-Star season of Mickey Mouse Club, you remember from the Backstreet Boys video, Nick Carter had actually not only auditioned for this season, but he also made it. He had a spot. Nick Carter from Backstreet Boys had a spot on this show and turned it down. $50,000 turned it down. But Nick turned down the Mickey Mouse Club contract in order to be a Backstreet Boy because he was wanting to go into Backstreet Boys, which hadn't even really existed yet. He was kind of the Justin Timberlake. But he was supposed to be on that season too. But the recordings had already been done. So they were just re-airing old Mickey Mouse Club. And it almost is like, wait, hold on, record scratch. I don't know if we talked about it yet in this video or we're going to get to it. But there's also this sort of Disney component to the whole thing. Like Mickey Mouse Club, but then how did NSYNC blow up? All the members of the band agree. That Disney concert, the promotion on Disney Channel.
In 1998, the Backstreet Boys pulled out of a televised concert special for the Disney Channel.
Backstreet Boys got to a point where they felt like doing Disney was too young for them.
Why the fuck you lying? Why you always lying?
The nationally televised special was NSYNC's U.S. debut.
They wowed everybody because they were so super polished, they were so super together, the preparation paid off.
It aired over and over and over, and kids, they started to know, who are these guys in NSYNC?
That was the eye-opener for America, like, oh wow, there's somebody new here.
NSYNC's album was hovering around 66 on the chart. The special aired, went from 66 to 40 to 24 to 12, and then that's when they jumped over the Backstreet Boys, who were sitting at the number 4 position and took the number 2 position of their album. That was the point where NSYNC beat them at something.
No, that's what blew them up. They went from kind of struggling to like the number 2 album in the country in a few weeks. I'm telling y'all, I could make a video that is as long as the video you're watching right now on only the subject of the Disney commercial alone, the Disney stuff.
Doesn't even get into the New Year's Eve premiere.
We should just do a podcast. Comment below if you want us to do a podcast on our web research. It's going to be so in-depth. So it just makes me wonder about the Disney connection, really. Which brings us to Justin Randall Timberlake.
Justin likes to play basketball. His favorite color is baby blue. He was born in Memphis, Tennessee on January 31st, 1982. Justin, he's really hot.
Justin Timberlake was born in Memphis, Tennessee on January 31st, 1981.
He never wanted to be touched. He never wanted to be talked to. He would get so fretful, it's just like, get out of my space.
His mom says that he would crawl around and hold his feet up so he didn't get his shoes dirty.
When he was 7 years old, he had founded a vocal group where they went around imitating New Kids on the Block.
We actually had a little group where we went around and imitated the New Kids on the Block.
And another thing, too, with this little band, as you can see in that clip right behind the stage there, it says Putting on the Kids, which may be the name of the talent show that they're performing in or the circuit or whatever. But I'm looking at the kids he's performing with in this Putting on the Kids clip, and it's not the same kids, I don't think, as the ones in this group here called Graffiti, which was featured in a newspaper in 1991. So I don't know who Graffiti is. Maybe Graffiti was also supposed to be the New Kids on the Block band, but that doesn't actually make sense either because there's girls in this one. So they were trying to do New Kids on the Block with girls, maybe. I don't know. I really don't know, but wanted to point that Graffiti part out. At church, Justin would perform songs and throw Hershey's Kisses out to the women in the audience. I don't know. It's all just sounding so eerily familiar, given the same exact energy as Usher on that talent show that he did around the same time, and it also lines up with how L.A. Reid described baby 10-year-old Usher swooning the adult-aged ladies at the record company during his audition.
He got down on one knee and he sang Boyz II Men's End of the Road. He really charmed the girls in my office.
Couldn't believe this little kid was doing all the things he was doing, getting in their face, kissing their hands.
Mr. Usher Raymond. Come on, man.
I was all out in the audience. I was all over the girls.
Just look at the footage side by side. I mean, it all looks very similar. And then why don't we just also throw in the New Kids on the Block singing to those young girls? Why don't we just have a quad screen right here and throw up the Backstreet Boys too? Because look at all of this. Look, 4 screens, side to 4. Look at them all. So doesn't this look kind of familiar? Anyway, Justin's mom started entering him into beauty pageants as a young child, and he was actually the first boy to compete in some of them.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Justin Randall Timberlake, and I'm from Millington, Tennessee.
Not only did he do the talent, but he did the modeling and the whole bit.
He went on to compete and win even against the girl competitors in some of these competitions.
The first time in history of Southern Charm pageants, we have Justin Timberlake, your supreme winner!
And his mom was very excited when he won. And that might have been because he actually won a lot of prize money, like in the thousands of dollars.
Lee and his mother was extremely excited that he won the pageant. He took money to the bank on that one.
The pageant MC even made a comment about it, stating, quote, "This kid made more money than I did this weekend."
I wasn't keeping track, but this kid made more money this weekend than I did. Once again, Justin Timberlake. Give him a great round of applause.
But this is where the talent show, pyramid scheme, funnel shows up, which is another repeat player in the web. Apparently, winning in the local talent show circuits could land you in the Star Search pipeline. And according to Justin's mom, there were 2 kids chosen from the Memphis talent show beauty pageant circuit who would later go on to Star Search, and Justin was one of the 2 kids.
There were 2 people they chose from Memphis, and he was one of them.
From Millington, Tennessee, welcome Justin Randall.
The young singer with the 10-gallon hat seemed comfortable in the spotlight.
Unfortunately, or maybe fortunately for Justin, he did lose in the first round. Womp womp. But here's an interesting piece of info. Did you know that Star Search and Mickey Mouse Club were filmed in the same building on different stages?
Star Search and Mickey Mouse Club were filmed in the same building on 2 different stages.
I didn't know that either.
They had photos with all the Mickey Mouse Club kids and everything. And Justin is like, oh, this is what I want to do.
Okay, here we are at the MMC at the recording studio. We got gold records on the wall, and the studio's back here, so let's show you around. Come on. Who's got the flavor? Check it out. Hey, we're making an album.
This is like once in a lifetime. When do you ever get to record an album?
I just can't wait till the album comes out and kind of turn on the radio. Hey, that's our song. What would it be like if I was recording an album?
So little Justin, having his hopes and dreams dashed by losing in the first round of Star Search, is leaving the studio, and he sees photos up and down the hallway of all the Mickey Mouse Club members. He made up his mind right then and there to audition, and he was determined to get casted on that show.
There were somewhere between 500 and 1,000 kids there auditioning.
The casting director absolutely loved him.
He was out in the waiting room outside of the audition with his mother. My eye just kept looking over at Justin.
Yo, what's up? This is where I come from. This is the Mississippi River, and that is Memphis, Tennessee.
He was dressed perfectly. His hair was perfect.
He went in and sang When a Man Loves a Woman.
And again, the attributes that the casting director was most impressed with sound extremely familiar to the attributes L.A. Reid mentioned about Usher. Specifically, this Mickey Mouse Club casting director said that Justin had sang the shit out of that song and that there was, quote, nothing innocent or unprofessional or a little green about Justin.
He sang the shit out of it. There was nothing innocent or unprofessional or a little green about Justin.
Justin attended the Mickey Mouse Club Finishing Flavor School Camp for 2 years, receiving his training.
The training that he got there over the first 2 years, it's probably the best thing that could have ever happened for him.
So instead of the Bellin Jesuit School or NYU Tisch School for the Fine Arts or the New York School for Performing Arts, Justin received his training on the Mickey Mouse Club. He was 13 or 14 years old when the show was canceled. And poor thing, he was basically unemployed, all dressed up with nowhere to go.
And his world came crashing down on him.
Justin was really distraught.
See you real soon.
Readjustment is very difficult for most Mouseketeers.
Now, this would also be the same time frame that Britney Spears would have meandered back down to Kentwood for a year or so, living perhaps the only normal year of her life to date, but that's a video for a whole nother day. So the Mickey Mouse Club show is canceled.
The Mickey Mouse Club was canceled.
But Justin and his mom had developed an appetite for fame and fortune, and they were on the prowl for Justin's next big break.
And Justin had to return to his sleepy hometown in Tennessee.
You know, for him, it was tough. He would step out and go and experience new culture and the new fashion trends, you know, things like that, new hairstyles. Where we grew up, people, they're not open to change. You know, they don't like change.
I can't imagine people picking on Justin. Kids picking on him.
When you're a boy and you live in the South, it's tough. It's tough to be a boy in the South. But it also, I think, prepared him for what was to come in the future.
According to Justin's mom, she claims she got a call from somebody down in Orlando, and they flew Justin down to audition for Lou Pearlman.
Justin's mom called me and said that she had gotten a call from somebody in Orlando saying that he was putting a group together, was looking for somebody close to Jesse's age who could sing. Justin's mom edited together some stuff from the Mickey Mouse Club. She's like, we're just sending off a tape.
Justin came down and sang for Lou. He was definitely in.
Now, according to this version of the story, Chris Kirkpatrick was already in the band as the first member.
Chris said, I'm putting this band together, so I'm picking all the voices for it.
Which cannot be reconciled with the story Chris later told on Big Brother, just to point that out. Because remember on Big Brother, Chris said he called the 19 talent agents.
I called agents and I called 19. I remember this.
The one called him back, and the one that called him back had already had Justin's demo tape. Remember that? That's what Chris said.
19. I remember this specifically. I called 19 talent agents, and only one guy got back to me in Orlando, and I get this manila envelope. What the hell am I listening to? Justin Timberlake.
But according to Justin's mom, she claims she got a call from, quote, somebody who, I don't know, down in Orlando, and they flew Justin down to audition for Lou Pearlman.
Justin's mom called me and said that she had gotten a call from somebody in Orlando saying that he was putting a group together, was looking for somebody close to Jesse's age who could sing.
Justin came down and sang for Lou. He was definitely in.
Now, according to this version of the story, Chris Kirkpatrick was already in the band as the first member.
Chris said, I'm putting this band together, so I'm picking all the voices for it.
So if Chris Kirkpatrick started NSYNC, it just don't make, none of this is adding up.
When I started, I didn't get into it. I started.
Y'all see what I'm saying? If it's confusing to you, it's because it is. It is confusing because it's not all adding up. It cannot all be true. Anyway, Justin, unsurprisingly, as we know, makes the band, and he promptly recommends his Mickey Mouse Club friend JC Chasez for the third part. Again, JC and Justin knew each other from being on the Mickey Mouse Club together.
So Justin was like, I work with a guy named JC, who's also in the Mickey Mouse Club with me.
And if you remember, they were both on the Mickey Mouse Club together because they had won these national talent scouting competition shows. Both JC and Justin Timberlake ended up on the Mickey Mouse Club because of their involvement in their local talent shows. So Justin makes the band NSYNC, not really sure exactly, before or after Chris, but whatever the case may be, everyone agrees that Justin is the one who pulled JC into NSYNC. JC apparently got a call from Justin asking him to join the band.
Josh got a call from Justin saying, we want to know if you're interested.
Interestingly, JC did want to go to college, but his dad told him to try out for the band so he doesn't regret it when he's 40.
Josh was saying, you know what, I don't know. I think I'm better off going to college. And I just looked at him and I said, Josh, you don't want to be 40 years old and say, I wished I'd have tried.
JC followed his dad's advice, auditioned for NSYNC, which doesn't really seem like it was really an audition. Seems like more like it was like a do you want the part?
JC came down, auditioned, got it.
Type of situation. He accepts the part and decides to give it a go instead of attending college. So, by any and every version of the story, the first three members of NSYNC were Chris Kirkpatrick, Justin Timberlake, and JC Chasez. But as we know from Lou Pearlman's boy band formula that we learned about in the Backstreet Boys video, Lou Pearlman needed 5 boys for his supposed 5-part harmonies that he liked so much. And that's when Joey Fatone enters the chat.
And they got this orange, it's almost kind of like the carrot.
Yeah, it's a carrot color. It's kind of nice. Are you going to keep it red?
I'm going to keep it for a little while, and then I'm going to cut it short and let it grow up on it, get brown.
Yeah,
so just different things.
It looks nice.
Ladies and gentlemen, it's Joe Fatone's living room.
Joey Fatone was the youngest of 3 children, and his dad seems to have basically hated him, calling him a little dumpy kid who was smaller than the other ones.
I worked in Manhattan, and Joey was born in Brooklyn. By the time I got there, he was already there. It was my 3rd kid, so, I thought, look at this. Kind of a small little dumpy kid that's not as big as the other ones were.
And this is interesting, okay, but his father had a doo-wop band in the 50s, and so did Michael Jackson's dad. I don't know, just things to think about.
His father had a band in the 50s.
There was a lot of doo-wop going on in the family.
I mean, we had, the Frankie Lyman Teenagers, any of the stuff that was 50s, 60s.
Shows, plays, always clowning around.
Joey's family was originally from Brooklyn, but they moved to Orlando because Brooklyn was starting to get dirty and dangerous or something, according to them.
Brooklyn was getting a little rough.
She liked Florida. She wanted to move to Florida. It was very quick that they moved out there. We finished school, and they packed up the station wagon, and he left.
And Joey ends up going to school in Florida with some of the kids from the Mickey Mouse Club, including this girl named Jennifer McGill.
My brother had a secret crush on her when we were living back in Brooklyn.
He joins a little doo-wop group of his own with his high school friends, and they did a lot of actual gigs, including the national anthem for the Orlando Magic when they played a game one time or something.
In front of 15,000 people. Guys on the team went nuts.
He also did school theater. He got maimed during one of his performances in Macduff, that's a Shakespeare play, and he stayed in character for the rest of the entire play until it ended and he took his bow or whatever, and then they hauled him off in an ambulance to the hospital.
One of the nights, the sword came down, Joey came up. He continued right to the end. We brought him over to the hospital immediately.
And he got 3 big clamps in his head for that.
That's a trooper. There's no question about it.
He also went on to work at Universal Studios. So it's like especially and particularly similar to this Chris story, right? He was in a doo-wop band. He was a transplant from another state who moved to Florida to work at Universal or in front of Universal, so Chris Kirkpatrick and Joey Fatone have similar story. And indeed, there are some versions of the story where Chris Kirkpatrick says that he had known Joey before NSYNC. Just things to think about. Anyway, Joey did not perform with the Hollywood high tones at Universal Studios. What he did was he played the Wolfman in the Beetlejuice show at Universal.
It was fun. You put makeup on, you jump around like a clown, you get paid great money.
Which harkens back to the Backstreet Boys celebration whenever one of them was dressed up like a clown. I'm not really sure why people were so obsessed with dressing up like clowns, but anyway. Joey also decided not to attend college so that he could pursue his performing dreams. So Lou Pearlman, JC, and Justin went to Universal Studios and sat in the audience to watch Joey perform as the Wolfman.
What's up?
And you might be wondering, why didn't Chris go? I don't know. I think probably, if my speculation, if you're asking me, Chris sent Lou, JC, and Justin to watch Joey's performance as the Wolfman, because Chris has admitted before that he knew Joey from his days at Universal. So I think it was probably like you already have the part, you just have to prove it to them and then they're gonna come. But, specifically, the research I did said that Justin, JC, and Lou Pearlman went to watch Joey audition. Chris wasn't there. Weird to me because Chris said he knew him before, but whatever, maybe he was busy. So after the performance, Lou, Justin, JC invited Joey to be the 4th member of the group, and he said yes. But as we know, we still need one more member for the 5-part harmony, and that is when Lance Bass entered the chat.
Justin got a hold of Lance.
Lanston Bass was born on March 4th, 1979 in Laurel, Mississippi. He had a freakishly deep voice, and by the time he was 16 years old, he was already a, quote, true bass. Lance, predictably, was also a member of a vocal performing group called the Mississippi Showstoppers. They were put together to promote the Mississippi Agricultural Museum. Anyway, Lance was also in a show choir that competed in national competitions. Justin Timberlake's mom, Lynn Harless, called Lance Bass's mom, Diane Bass, and said Justin was in a group and they needed a bass singer to round out the group's 5-part harmony.
We knew we were going to have a 5th person because the 4 of us that we had couldn't sing bass, and we couldn't sing. Joey was like the lowest, and he didn't have a bass voice. We had everything, we had the harmonies down tight, but we just missed the bottom, It's just like we wanted to hear that. So I was the last member to join NSYNC.
Now, this is slightly different than the version Lance told in the boy band Con, which was that Diane Bass got a call from Lou, Lynn, and Justin Timberlake, who were wanting to start a group in Orlando, just to point that out. Anyway, according to Lance, Justin Timberlake's mom pestered Lance Bass's mom, Diane, calling several more times to attempt to recruit Lance to be the last and final member of NSYNC.
I did some research through my old vocal coach, and we found Lance.
So Justin called up vocal coach, and he recommended me to come down to Orlando and meet the guys. And so I came down and immediately, fell in love with the group, and I was in it.
The minute we heard him sing with us, it was like, there are the 5 pieces. It's like your hand.
Now, that voice coach that had originally made the connection to Lance, Bob Woodward, he basically coerced Lance's mom by saying, you need to let Lance go. This is his shot.
Diane, I says, you need to let Lance go. This is his shot.
You know, you just feel like you have to give him that opportunity. It just doesn't come around every day.
I'd spank you, but I'd go on camera.
And Lance would have been like 16 years old at the time. But, do y'all remember that voice coach wasn't just Lance's voice coach? He had also been Justin Timberlake's voice coach.
I've coached Justin Timberlake.
So I just want to reiterate my suspicion that NSYNC was specifically manufactured around Justin Timberlake, an already famous face with fans of his own from the Mickey Mouse Club. And by these people's own admission, Justin had the distinct honor of hand-selecting the third member of the band, JC. Justin also accompanied Lou Pearlman personally to watch Joey's Wolfman performance, which served basically as his audition. And Justin, along with his mother and former voice coach, also played a vital instrumental role in Lance Bass's recruitment to the band, even though Lance's mom wasn't really too keen on the idea in the first place and had to be persuaded not only by Justin's mom, but by Lance's voice coach. And then you add all that to the fact that Chris Kirkpatrick, despite his rabid insistence that he started NSYNC, also said that the only one of 19 talent agents that bothered to return his call already had Justin Timberlake's demo and package ready to go, and Chris didn't even know what the hell he was listening to. Anyway, to close off the Lance Bass loop, him and his mom end up flying down to Orlando to audition for the band. When the 5 boys hit that first harmony note, the hair on the back of Lynn Harless's neck stood up, which is literally exactly what they said about the Backstreet Boys when they hit their first harmony note. So I don't know if it's really just serendipitous and true or if it's a PR push selling point, but that's just me. And speaking of Justin Timberlake's mom's involvement in the whole origin of this band, and also just speaking of stories that don't really add up or have a consistent explanation, we do have to talk about the name NSYNC.
My mother came up with the name. First time we sang together, she goes, man, you guys sound really NSYNC. And we were like, ding, ding, ding.
Because, I don't know, I'm gonna just let the clip speak.
Little bit of trivia for you. If you're wondering what NSYNC stands for, each letter represents the last letter in every band member's first name. I just learned that tonight.
For why there is so much confusion in my personal mind on this issue, but yeah, I mean, the hard sell for me on the name thing is this clip right here where Justin is like, I don't know, nervous as a poor cat, and he's talking about, well, my mom, she came up with it, and then we were dancing.
It was actually my mom kind of spit out the name NSYNC. She thought of it, and what it means is together with our harmonies and together with our dancing. And I mean, it was a perfect name, we thought. Dun, 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 dun.
And singing, and we were doing our thing, and she's like, you guys look NSYNC or something, and then he's like, then after we had decided on the name.
We looked at the name after we had chosen the name, and it was kind of funny because we realized that the last letters of each of our first names actually spelled NSYNC.
After we had decided on the name, we just realized, miraculously, out of nowhere that the letters in the name are actually correspond. I don't know, I'll put it in here, but it's like, you don't just notice.
It's like Justin for the N, Chris for the S, Joey for the Y, Lanston for the N, and JC for the C, and that smells NSYNC.
Something like that. And look, y'all, look where you are. If you've ever watched any of my videos, you know that I notice stuff. all right? This isn't something you just notice, okay? It's either done on purpose. I had to figure out a way to make this name work. And, you know, evidence for that is there was already a band of men of color, I think it might have been all black men, named NSYNC, spelled NSYNC the same way. And they had already been in existence. So I don't know if maybe that name was borrowed. I would never make any allegations of the sort. And then, you know, speaking of the name also, I don't know if we talked about this in the video yet or not. We're gonna have to move stuff around. But speaking of names, I did come across some evidence in some of my research that the German or the European record executives did not like the name NSYNC at all, and they did not get it.
It means like in sync together, like togetherness, like we do everything in sync and synchronized. And also
synchronisiert sozusagen. Und auch
first letter, the last letter of our first names,
der letzte Buchstabe unseres Vornamens setzt sich daraus halt zusammen.
NSYNC.
Hey,
da hat sich ja wirklich einer was ausgedacht.
Also, there was other stuff, like they didn't think that Lance Bass was as talented as the rest of them. And then they put that in the documentary and aired it. Bless his heart, poor thing.
My impression when I saw the boys first was that they were really working on a very high level, that they were really, really talented. And I realized that one of the boys, his name was Lance, wasn't at the same level at all the others. That's when we put our foot down. They guarantee me that Lance will be, in a short time period, on the same level than all the others.
And Bewitched, what did they sing? Say you will, say you won't, say you do what I don't, say loving. Also, apparently, there's this whole extra side note about an asterisk.
A world under fire.
It's a giant asteroid. That's not an asteroid. It's an asterisk.
My God.
It's enormous. Seems to have dislodged from the talented girl group Bewitched. It's gaining momentum, and it's hurtling towards Earth.
And only one group can put the planet back.
It's 10!
And you know what an asterisk is? Really, it's just a star. Speaking of stars, what in the hell with this weird pentagram of connections between the boys? Again, right here, this clip, how they knew with the do-do-do, and then the do-do-do, and then the star, and the boop-boop. It's like I could make a whole entire video as long as this one, just on how they were all connected before they actually became band members. And I don't know, I should probably just make a whole video about this, honestly. And I know y'all would watch it, but...
Prepare yourself. It's the human beatbox. Yeah, that's me. Piano, hit me. Alright, here it comes. 4, 3, 2, battle.
And now, back to NSYNC on
DJ Investigates.
Anyway, the very same night that Lance auditioned, they were talking about contracts. TLDR, they all signed the contracts and became NSYNC. Then it was time for their finishing school.
With Pearlman's backing, some members of the group, including Justin and his mom, moved into a house in Orlando. They recorded their music in a secret hideaway nearby.
It's almost like we're in the fun house.
Right?
So Lou had bought NSYNC a house to live in.
Life for the band was all business.
This is the compound.
This is the compound.
Maybe he rented it. I think he bought it.
Lou had purchased a house for all the guys to live in.
But somebody's mom called it a, quote, little commune where all the boys lived.
They had a little commune where all the guys lived.
Rise and shine!
And played together and worked together. They had toys.
This is me at work. Hi, Chris at work. This is one of my friends at work. This is one of my friends at work. I worked at Universal Studios for 2 years, singing with the Hollywood High Tones. This is my little sister.
Basketball goals and skateboard ramps.
He actually gave them an allowance.
It was kind of like Peter Pan and the Lost Boys.
We'd all try to learn our instruments, better than the next guy. Everybody just worked to that goal,
So it wasn't a crazy house, it was a focused house.
Yeah, it wasn't crazy at all. I mean, it wasn't like, you would think like, oh, there's girls over all the time, there was this. I mean, it was work. There was never...
His house was like a giant theme park. All white house, white and baby blue everywhere.
According to Joey's dad, the boys were rehearsing like 18 hours a day, and they really weren't making money, at least not in the traditional sense. Lou Pearlman came up with a plan. See, Lou was in the process of refining his farm-to-stage, all-in-one boy band manufacturing machine that was modeled off of Berry Gordy's Motown Records, which Berry Gordy had modeled off of the Detroit, Michigan assembly lines first popularized by Henry Ford. See, Johnny Wright was basically a direct musical management descendant of Berry Gordy at Motown Records. Johnny had worked directly with these guys named Dick Scott and Maurice Starr. They all worked together to manage New Kids on the Block in the 80s and 90s at the height of their success and fame. Dick Scott was a former Motown executive who learned directly from Berry Gordy himself. So Berry Gordy has this assembly line all-in-one musical manufacturing and management record company. He passes his knowledge on to Dick Scott and others who worked directly with Johnny Wright, who went on to work directly with Louis J. Pearlman, who revamped the model for the new millennium. Lou's formula had a few steps. Step 1. Get them singing and harmonizing and dancing together. Step 2. Get them to perform it live, preferably for screaming preteen and teenage girls. This is the part where you can show larger record companies the proof of concept, as in market interest. Step 3 would be get all that on film, edit it together as a demo tape, and send it out to people. Step 4, those tapes land on the desks of major record labels to hopefully get the band signed. Step 5, record an album, possibly in Europe first. And step 6, tour, probably in Europe first. Oh, and this whole thing was bankrolled entirely by Lou Pearlman. I mean, he put up 100% of the startup capital. So they get through step 1, and for step 2, they plan to do a showcase at Pleasure Island. The invitees included girls who had sent Justin and JC fan mail. Justin's mom, Lynn Harless, had pulled all their addresses from the fan mail and sent out a flyer about this new group they were in, performing in Orlando. And yet again, here we go. This showcase looks exactly like the Backstreet Boys grad night performance at SeaWorld. And exactly like their Star Search performance. And the Star Search performance was just an imitation of New Kids on the Block, which was frankly just a Caucasian imitation of New Edition. And New Edition was only called New Edition to imply to the public that they were a new edition of Jackson 5, which was a Berry Gordy Motown Records band. The web is webbing. Anyway, outside of the boy band context, this process was eerily similar to 13-year-old Usher on the talent show stage. Again, serenading little girls, holding their hands, bending down to them, etc., etc. And NSYNC's first little performance showcase at Pleasure Island looked pretty legit. There were a lot of girls there. They were screaming, they were crying. The NSYNC boys were mostly good on camera. They looked cute, they sang good, all that. Anyway, so step 1 and 2 and even 3 were all good. But NSYNC would hit a snag on step 4, which was scoring a record contract. And NSYNC's first little performance showcase at Pleasure Island looked pretty legit. There were a lot of girls there. They were screaming, they were crying. The NSYNC boys were mostly good on camera. They looked cute, they sang good, all that. Anyway, so step 1 and 2 and even 3 were all good, but NSYNC would hit a snag on step 4, which was scoring a record contract. They needed to get signed, but the big labels weren't really interested and kept telling them no for various reasons, including record companies were claiming that the public was getting bored of boy bands. Johnny Wright, the guy who Lou Pearlman had recruited to help manage the Backstreet Boys because of his work with New Kids on the Block, had some connections in Europe, of course he did, and started grooming NSYNC to audition for these German record executives. So the US wasn't really liking pop music at the time, at least not the type that they were trying to make. The record companies were also a little fatigued with the boy band thing and spooked out about signing another American boy band. Johnny Wright had this connection in Germany, so the boys, they decided that they would give it a shot and go audition for these label executives in Germany. So Diane Bass and Lynn Harless, who were Justin Timberlake and Lance Bass's mothers, they would accompany the boys. And Justin was like 14 at the time, and Lance, I think, would have been around 16 years old, maybe 17. Before they left for Germany, Chris, the designated man of the house for his mom, remember? He hugged his mom and said, "I'm doing this for the girls and you. I want to make sure you're all okay, Mom." According to NSYNC's then manager, Johnny Wright, while they were all in Germany, the boys were working on recording their first album and developing their stage show. And the Germans loved NSYNC.
Immer an ihrer Seite Aarons Mutter Jane.
And she's the one who helps me sing and to be a star.
Kurz nach
I like to go on stage.
Not only that, so did Austria and Switzerland. In a desperate attempt to just make it by any means necessary, the boys did everything that was offered to them, much like the Backstreet Boys had done. They didn't turn down an interview or an appearance opportunity. They were lucky if they were getting 4 or 5 hours of sleep a night, and they were very young teenage boys who were being dragged all over Europe with no sleep or breaks, and they were getting kind of skinny and raggedy and worn down. NSYNC was flying high in Europe, but despite all their hard work, it would come crashing down around them when they returned home to the United States and encountered a serious reality check. They returned stateside in 1998, and basically nobody really cared, which was a stark contrast from the reception that they had received in Europe. They did eventually get signed to RCA for a major record deal, but they had to keep the hustle going to make it work and avoid getting cut from the label. And one such hustle was the Walmart parking lot show. See, Chris's mom had worked at Walmart at the time, and her manager actually had a radio station. So the radio station Walmart manager guy worked with Chris's mom to set up an NSYNC concert in the Walmart parking lot. Astoundingly, 2,000 people showed up to the show.
His mother worked at Walmart.
I was running the craft and fabric department, and I have this wonderful manager, Mike Downs, whose brother had radio stations. And he said, "Well, I hear you boys in the band." Mike took a chance on them and said, "We'll do a show here."
We put together a little show in the parking lot of a Walmart.
They said, "Well, you'll be lucky if you get a couple hundred people."
Had to have been a good 2,000 plus people that day.
But NSYNC's biggest break of all was the infamous Disney concert. See, a much more famous at the time Backstreet Boys were similarly overworked and exhausted, but they had been in the game for several years longer than NSYNC at this point, which meant they were a little less eager to up and perform at the drop of a hat, like when they were younger. The story goes that the Backstreet Boys were invited to do this concert for a Disney special, but they didn't want to, or they simply couldn't. I'm not exactly sure. That story also doesn't have all the strings attached, if you know what I mean, but the concert special was at risk of being canceled. And that's when some lady from Disney allegedly called RCA, and RCA allegedly recommended NSYNC to replace the Backstreet Boys for the special. NSYNC only had 3 weeks to prepare for this massive, monumental, performance of a lifetime special. And they worked their beep off day and night, dancing, singing, pushing themselves to their exhausted teenage limits to prepare for the Disney special. But Disney put in work too. They aired so many promo commercials advertising for the special. I mean, y'all probably even remember seeing them.
If you're into music, into dancing, into 5 guys who are topping the music charts, then you're in sync with NSYNC. It's an all-original in-concert special.
We're NSYNC. Be sure to catch me and the rest of the guys for our first ever TV concert special right here on Disney. It's a beautiful thing.
Meet one of the hottest groups around, NSYNC in concert, tonight at 9:55, 8:55 Central.
Only on Disney.
But that marketing did work tremendously.
My favorite holiday wish for everyone would be just to have a Merry Christmas.
When I tell you the girls went absolutely buck wild over that Disney special, and so did the record sales.
Questions. I'm going to start with Marissa. Go ahead, Marissa.
Hi, my name's Annie, and oh my gosh, I love you guys so much, and you have been everything to me, and you are such great inspirations to me, and it's my birthday in 11 days, and I was just wondering if you would sing me happy birthday. Oh, she's crying.
Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday from NSYNC.
go to Marissa. Yes, Marissa.
I read in Cosmo Girl, Justin, that you do the shake it dance every morning. And I was just wondering if you could demonstrate that for us.
In the week after the special aired, NSYNC sold over 500,000 records, more than 500,000 in 1 week. Within a few weeks, the album was #2 in the whole country. NSYNC would go on to do all kinds of things that y'all already know about. They were in the Super Bowl, they performed with Janet Jackson, they did stuff with Britney Spears, they did charity basketball games. I mean, they were super famous, they were everywhere, y'all remember.
I want my baby back, baby back, baby back.
NSYNC's Pokemon rap.
Gotta catch them all, gotta catch them all.
Oh, it's NSYNC!
So anyway, we brought you this wicked gift basket.
Execute, move, shoot up, Yodo, Lapras, Vulpix, right on.
But while they were enjoying the height of their fame, sinister figures were lurking in and out of the shadows. In a 2015 interview, Lance Bass would accuse a, quote, pedophile of touching him oddly when he was 16 or 17 years old.
This also happens to men too. I mean, it's a two-way street. It has happened to me. When I was 16, 17 years old, when we started, there was someone that, we worked with that was inappropriately touching us. And I was even aware then at 16 that this guy was a pedophile and he was touching me oddly, but I didn't feel victimized at the time because I was very aware of it. With the guys, we would talk about it. We would kind of joke about it, but it's not a joking thing. But as a kid, I don't know, it was odd, but I'm glad that we were aware of it and we didn't feel victimized at the time.
To be clear, Lance would immediately walk this statement back like the next day. He put out another statement the next day clarifying that nobody else was, quote, molested from NSYNC that he knows of. And he reiterated that there was nothing more than just simply inappropriate touching. He said at 16 or 17 years old, he knew that it wasn't right, and no man should be touching a teenager like that. He described receiving weird massages and stuff about his biceps, but he reiterated it's not like a Bill Cosby situation where I felt violated and I need justice and it affected me. He says he just didn't. And for Lance, that's all well and good. I actually am genuinely happy to hear that and to know that it did not affect him or traumatize him. But let's look a little deeper into some of the other allegations that were made in different places by different people.
The reason he would act so weird sometimes, he would give you a massage, so he was very touchy-feely. He was just a very touchy guy. It always felt a little, okay, I think I know what you're doing.
We kind of had people around us saying, hey, watch out for this behavior. It's kind of been out there that this may or may not be happening, and so you kind of knew what to look for. And I'll never forget the one time I was alone with Lou. We go back and he calls me in my room and he's like, I want to talk to you about your performance. By the way, the whole time he was very good at playing on your desire to be successful. And he would say things to me like, you're the Justin Timberlake. You're the Nick Carter. He takes it another step further and says, I minored in physical therapy. In college, I can give your muscles a pump without you even working out. Come here, let me rub your muscles. So then it kind of starts turning into this weird massage. I got to be really close with Rich Cronin because his brother Mike was our manager and LFO came out on tour with us. Rich was one of the members that actually lived in Lou's house with him at one point. I feel I can tell this story because Rich went on Howard Stern and told it. Lou basically comes in and he's all worked up and he's like, got this big opportunity for you guys in Europe.
He's punching his table, he's really acting good. He goes,
this could be the make it or break it moment for LFO. This guy over in Europe who has this big recording company.
He goes, all he wants to do is touch your penis.
Oh.
And I don't know what happens after that. Just pretty much touch your penis and, play with it.
That's how they do business over there. I don't want you to get freaked out. We got to do what's right for the band. And so I'm going to let you practice on me so that we don't go over there and blow this deal.
And guess what else? In college, I was a psychology minor. I'm going to help you get through it mentally. He goes, well, think about it, guys. Don't say this. Don't you fucking tell anyone.
And then, y'all, I found this whole side story about how Lance was almost the youngest person in space. And he went to this Russian space camp where nobody spoke English to him for months, and he survived on Pop-Tarts and Pringles, and then the Russian government wouldn't let him go to space without some type of $20 million donation to their program or something, which they didn't get, so they kicked Lance off and sent supplies on the rocket instead of Lance.
You went to space camp.
I don't know, I really wish I had time to get into a whole video just on that whole Lance Bass in space expedition, but I've already been here talking for way entirely too long, and y'all are probably brain zapped as it is. Like I told y'all at the beginning of the series and have reiterated several times now, if I put everything of this web all in one video, I think it would be 9 hours long and completely incomprehensible, so that's all I'm going to get into today. Anyway, as a result of Lou's multiple improprieties, NSYNC sued Lou and they went on to continue their career with Johnny Wright as their manager. They started recording a new album without Lou, and that's when Jive expressed interest in signing them. But Lou at Transcontinental Records and RCA BMG, who had originally signed NSYNC, they tried to stop Jive from the release of the new record for NSYNC, which resulted in yet another legal battle. And at this point, NSYNC did have fans, and the fans started lining up outside the courthouse with a little free NSYNC movement moment, and they came to court with their little signs and everything. That was really cute, good for them. Anyway, the parties ended up settling the lawsuit out of court, and NSYNC finally did sign a new deal with Jive.
The result was a settlement that the guys were very comfortable with, which resulted in them being able to record for Jive and move on with their lives.
A call went to the CEO of Jive, and I think his words were, bye, bye, bye. Which meant that was going to be the first single, and No Strings Attached was ready to get kicked off. The strings are cut. We're our own people. Lyrically,
I'm starting to find evidence that this whole rivalry between NSYNC and Backstreet Boys is also fake, because Chris Kirkpatrick, the first member of NSYNC, the founder that started it, Chris Kirkpatrick already knew Howie from the Backstreet Boys, and there was another Backstreet Boy who was in the band named Charlie Edwards who quit. Charlie Edwards was also friends with Chris. Chris, again, to remind you, I know it's confusing, is in NSYNC. So we had a member of NSYNC that was literally trying to emulate his personal friend Howie, who was a Backstreet Boy. So this whole thing about Backstreet Boys didn't know that NSYNC was getting started, please. Then you had the other connection of the Mickey Mouse Club, where Nick Carter was cast on the Mickey Mouse Club at the same time as Britney and Justin. Like, their moms weren't talking. I've seen enough VH1 Driven to know that these moms all talk to each other, and so do their vocal coaches. I'm not buying it, but that's just my opinion. What do I know? So that's all I really had for today, y'all. I'm not sure that we've spent more time on a video, to be honest. I've been scripting this for probably months. Just, stop and go. There's so much more stuff that I could include, and I really want to, but it's obviously, as you could see how long this video was, this is all I was really comfortable putting in a video. So in the meantime, facts ain't defamation. Love you, mean it. Okay, bye.
Every little thing I do never seems enough for you. You don't want to lose it again.
That chairman looks like you stole that from the Backstreet Boys.
Wrong.
No, this down in San Fran.
We stole it from Janet. We stole it from Janet.
I miss you.